They taught us how to build bridges in engineering school, taught us load calculations, stress points, proper anchoring techniques, taught us about materials and measurements and safety protocols. What they didn't teach us was how to do it while people were shooting at you. That's the part you figure out on your own, usually right before you die. My name is Robert Chen. Yeah, I know. Chinese name, but I'm as American as they come. Born in Sacramento, 1920. My old man ran a grocery store, worked 16-hour days so his kids could go to college. I was studying civil engineering at Berkeley when Pearl Harbor happened. December 7th, 1941. I was in my dorm room studying for finals when we heard. Everything changed that day. Not just for the country, for me personally. See, being Chinese American in 1941 meant people could mostly tell you apart from the Japanese, but not always. And they were scared and angry and looking for someone to blame. Some of my classmates wouldn't sit next to me anymore. Got called a Jap more times than I can count, even though my family had been in California since the 1880s. I enlisted in January 1942. Army Corps of Engineers. Figured I'd put my education to use, serve my country, prove I was American. Looking back, I shouldn't have had to prove anything. But that's how it was. Basic training at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. They worked us hard. 16 weeks of combat training mixed with specialized engineering instruction. We learned demolition, mine clearing, bridge construction, road building, all of it under simulated combat conditions. The instructors were mostly veterans from the First War, hard men who'd seen the real thing. My platoon sergeant was a guy named Patrick O'Brien from South Boston, big Irish guy, built like a brick wall with a temper to match. First day, he looked at me and said, "Chen, huh? You one of them Japs?" "No, Sergeant. Chinese American. Family's been here 60 years. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good enough. You fuck up. I don't care where your family's from. I'll bury you. You do your job, we'll get along fine." That was the most acceptance I got from anyone in those days. Do your job, don't fuck up, maybe you'll be treated like a human being. Our company shipped out to England in November 1943. Spent 6 months training for the invasion, practicing beach landings, bridge construction under fire, mine clearing, all the skills we'd need. We knew something big was coming. Everyone knew. You could feel it in the air. I made friends with a few guys in my squad. There was Tommy Kowalski from Detroit, a welder in civilian life who could join metal like he was sewing fabric. Marcus Williams from Georgia, a black guy who faced even more shit than I did but never let it break him. And Carl Jensen from Minnesota, a farm boy who could calculate load-bearing weights in his head faster than most guys could use a slide rule. We were Combat Engineer Battalion 237, Company C. Our job was simple to describe, impossible to do. Build bridges so the Army could advance, blow bridges so the enemy couldn't. Do it fast, do it under fire, and don't get killed. On paper, it sounded almost reasonable. We hit Normandy on D-Day +3, June 9th, 1944. The beaches were still a mess, bodies in the water, wrecked equipment everywhere, the smell of death and diesel fuel mixing with salt air. We waded ashore at Utah Beach with our tools and explosives and surveying equipment, and immediately got put to work clearing obstacles. For 3 weeks, we worked behind the front lines, repairing roads, clearing mines, building temporary bridges over small streams. Hard work, dangerous work, but nothing like what was coming. The breakthrough came in late July, Operation Cobra. The Army punched through the German lines, and suddenly we were racing across France. And every time we came to a river, every time we hit a destroyed bridge, we had to stop. The whole advance would grind to a halt while we built a way across. That's where combat engineers earned their name and their casualty rates. My first time building under fire was at a river crossing near Saint-Lô in early August. The Germans had blown the stone bridge, just dropped it right into the water. We needed a tactical bridge across, and we needed it fast. The infantry was pinned down on our side, the tanks couldn't advance, and the brass was screaming for us to get it done. Sergeant O'Brien gathered us around a half-destroyed wall. Mortars were landing 100 yards away. Small arms fire crackling from the far side of the river. Listen up! We're putting up a Bailey Bridge, 50 meters span. Work crews of 6, rotation every 30 minutes. Jerry's going to shell us, that's a given. Keep your heads down, work fast, and for Christ's sake, don't drop anything in the river. Questions? Nobody had questions. What would you ask? Will we die? We already knew the answer to that. We moved to the river in groups, carrying the bridge sections. Each piece weighed 300 pounds. Took 6 men to move one. And you had to place them precisely, bolt them together perfectly, or the whole thing would collapse when the tanks rolled across. The first shell landed while we were setting the foundation piers. Whistled in from the German side, exploded in the water 30 feet from us. The blast threw up a geyser 20 feet high. Soaked us all, ears ringing, but nobody hit. Keep working, O'Brien bellowed. They're just zeroing in. Move faster. We moved faster. Placed the first span section, bolted it down. Marcus and I were on bolt duty, hand tightening each one, then hitting it with a torque wrench to proper spec. Your hands had to be steady. One loose bolt and the whole structure could fail under load. Second shell landed closer, 40 feet upriver. Shrapnel whined through the air. Something hot zipped past my ear. Chen, you hit? O'Brien shouted. No, Sergeant. Then keep working. We kept working. What else could you do? The job needed doing. Men were depending on us. You buried the fear, ignored the shells, focused on the bolts. Left hand holds the nut. Right hand torques the wrench. Count the clicks. 1, 2, 3. Move to the next one. Tommy Kowalski was welding support brackets when the third shell hit. Landed right in the middle of our work area. The blast picked me up and threw me into the water. Went under, swallowed half the river, came up gasping and flailing. Carl Jensen pulled me out, dragged me to the bank while I coughed up water and tried to figure out if I was hit. Checked myself. No blood. Lucky. Tommy wasn't lucky. The shell had caught him square. He was just gone. Pieces of him scattered across the bridge section we'd been working on. His welding torch was still burning, lying in the mud. Jesus, Carl whispered. Jesus Christ. Get back to work. O'Brien appeared through the smoke. His face was granite. Tommy's dead. We grieve later. Bridge ain't gonna build itself. We got back to work. Stepped over Tommy's remains, picked up tools, kept building. Because that's what you did. You kept working until you finished, or until you died. Those were the only 2 options. We finished that bridge in 4 hours. Lost 2 men, Tommy and a guy from 2nd Squad whose name I never learned. The tanks rolled across at dusk, and we moved on to the next river. That was my introduction to combat engineering. It didn't get easier. The worst one was the Moselle River crossing in September 1944. We'd been pushing east through France, and the Germans were fighting for every foot of ground. They'd blown every bridge across the Moselle, some of them medieval stone bridges that had stood for centuries, just dropped into the water with demolition charges. We had to put up a bridge near the town of Pont-à-Mousson. The river was wide there, nearly 70 meters across, fast current, deep water, and the Germans held the far bank in force. Command decided we'd build at night. Less exposure to direct fire, harder for German artillery to target us. Made sense on paper. In practice, it meant building a precision structure in pitch darkness while people tried to kill you. We started at 2200 hours. No lights except shielded flashlights for the crew chiefs. Had to assemble everything by feel and memory. 6-man teams carrying bridge sections in the darkness, trying not to trip, not to fall in the river, not to make noise that would draw fire. First section went up okay. We were getting it positioned when the flares started. German flares arcing up from the far bank, turning night into day, exposing us completely. Then the machine guns opened up. Bullets sparked off the metal bridge sections, zipped through the air with that distinctive crack-snap sound. Men started dropping. I threw myself flat against a bridge section, making myself as small as possible. Keep working. O'Brien was up, walking around like the bullets couldn't touch him. We stop now. We all die anyway. Keep moving. Somehow we kept moving, crawled forward with bridge sections, bolted them together while lying flat, welded brackets while machine gun fire sparked around us. It was insane. It was impossible. We did it anyway. Marcus Williams was next to me, tightening bolts. A bullet caught him in the shoulder. He grunted, dropped his wrench, grabbed the wound. Marcus, you okay? Fuck! He was grimacing, blood seeping through his fingers. Fuck, that hurts. Fall back. Get to the medic. Not done with this section, he said through clenched teeth. He picked up the wrench with his good hand. Finish what you start, my daddy always said. He kept working, kept tightening bolts one-handed while blood ran down his arm. I wanted to stop him, make him get help, but we needed every hand. And he was right. You finish what you start, or men die. We got the bridge halfway across before the mortars started. 88-millimeter shells walking toward us from the far bank. You could hear them coming, that freight train sound that meant death was inbound. First one landed in the water, 20 meters short. Second one landed on the bank behind us, threw up dirt and rocks. Third one landed right on the bridge approach. The explosion was deafening. The concussion wave knocked me off the bridge section, sent me tumbling. I hit the ground hard, couldn't breathe, couldn't hear, couldn't see through the smoke and dust. When my vision cleared, Carl Jensen was lying 5 feet from me. His legs were gone, just gone, blown off at the knees. He was screaming, this high-pitched animal sound, thrashing around in a pool of his own blood. I crawled to him. Medic. MEDIC exclamation mark. Carl grabbed my jacket, pulled me close. His face was white as paper. Rob, I can't feel my legs. Why can't I feel my legs? What do you say? I didn't say anything. Just held his hand while the medic came running. They tied off what was left, shot him full of morphine, carried him away on a stretcher. He died before they got him to the aid station. Bled out on the way. Farm boy from Minnesota, 22 years old, could calculate load weights in his head. Dead in a French river because we needed a bridge. We finished the bridge at 0400, 6 hours of hell. Lost 8 men dead, 14 wounded. But the bridge stood. The tanks crossed at dawn. And we moved on to the next river. By October, we were pushing into Germany itself. The enemy fought harder there, defending their homeland, nothing left to lose. Every river crossing was a battle. Every bridge we built cost blood. The Roa River in November was bad. The Rhine crossing in March 1945 was worse. The Germans knew what those rivers meant. Once we crossed them, the war was over. So they threw everything they had at us. I stopped learning names after a while. New guys would join the company to replace the dead and wounded, and I'd just think of them as Replacement 1 or Replacement 2. Not because I was callous, because I couldn't handle learning their names, their stories, their dreams, only to watch them die a week later. Sergeant O'Brien got it at the Roa. We were placing explosive charges to blow a German bunker that was holding up the bridge construction. He was setting the timer when a sniper got him. Single shot through the chest. He looked surprised more than anything else. Well, shit, he said. Then he fell down and didn't get up. Big Irish guy from South Boston. Survived the First War, survived North Africa, survived Normandy. Got killed by one lucky bullet in a German forest. There's no fairness to it, no justice. You live until you don't. Marcus Williams made it all the way to the Rhine. Got hit by artillery during the big crossing in March 45. Took shrapnel in the gut. Bled out before they could get him to surgery. Black kid from Georgia who faced discrimination his whole life. Proved himself 100 times over. Died building a bridge in Germany. I think about him a lot. Think about what he could have been if the war hadn't eaten him up. By April 1945, I was one of the senior guys in the company. Not because I was particularly good, just because I'd survived longer than most. New lieutenant asked me how many bridges I'd built. I thought about it. 20, 30, lost count. Jesus, how many under fire? All of them. He stared at me. Young guy, fresh from officer training, still had that shine in his eyes. All of them? Lieutenant, if we're building a bridge, it means someone blew up the old one. Which means the enemy's still around. Which means they're going to shoot at us while we build. That's just how it works. A month later, that lieutenant was dead. Stepped on a mine while surveying a bridge site. The mine blew his legs off. He lived for about 10 minutes, screaming the whole time. Still had that shine in his eyes, right up until they went dark. The war in Europe ended May 8th, 1945. We were in Bavaria, building a bridge over some river whose name I can't remember. Someone came running up, shouting that Germany had surrendered. The war was over. We finished the bridge anyway, because that's what engineers do. We finish what we start. My breaking point didn't come during the war. It came after. They shipped us home in June 1945. Victory ships, crowded and slow, 2 weeks at sea. Everyone was celebrating. The war was won. We were going home. We'd survived. Guys were drinking, playing cards, talking about what they'd do first when they got back. See their girls, see their families, sleep in a real bed, eat real food. I couldn't celebrate. Couldn't feel anything except this hollow emptiness in my chest. We docked in New York. Crowds cheering, bands playing, confetti falling from buildings. The whole city was celebrating. And I stood on that ship's deck looking at it all and felt nothing. Just numb. I went home to Sacramento. My parents threw a party. Extended family, neighbors, everyone wanting to shake the hand of the war hero. They asked me questions. What was it like? Did you kill any Germans? Were you scared? How do you answer those questions? What was it like? It was watching my friends die while I tightened bolts. Watching them get blown apart, shot, burned, drowned. Did I kill any Germans? Probably. We blew up bridges with German soldiers on them. Were you scared? Every single second of every single day for 2 years straight. I didn't say any of that. Just smiled and nodded and said it was tough, but we got through it. The nightmares started a week after I got home. Every night, the same dreams, building bridges while shells fell. Tommy Kowalski disappearing in an explosion. Carl Jensen with no legs. Marcus bleeding out. The flares lighting up the Moselle. The machine gun fire sparking off metal. Over and over and over. I'd wake up gasping, covered in sweat, my hands shaking. My mother would hear me and come check on me, and I'd lie and say I was fine, just adjusting to being home. It would pass. It didn't pass. I went back to Berkeley in September, finished my engineering degree, got straight A's. The work was easy after building bridges under fire. What's a load calculation exam compared to German artillery? But I couldn't connect with anyone. The other students seemed like children to me, worrying about grades and dates and football games. Meaningless bullshit. I tried to date. Met a nice girl, Susan, studying literature. She was smart, funny, pretty. We went to movies, had dinners, walked around campus. She kept asking what was wrong, why I seemed so distant. One night she asked me directly, "Rob, what happened over there? What did they do to you?" And I tried to tell her. Tried to explain what it was like to build a bridge while people were dying around you. To work with precision and care while bullets flew and shells exploded. To watch your friends get blown apart and just keep working because the job had to get done. To come home and try to care about normal things when you'd seen what I'd seen. I couldn't explain it. The words wouldn't come. I sat there with this woman I was supposed to be falling in love with, and I couldn't make her understand. Couldn't make anyone understand. She stopped calling after that. Can't blame her. What did she sign up for? Not this. Not a broken man who couldn't sleep, couldn't feel, couldn't connect. I graduated in 1947, got a job with the State Highway Department designing bridges. Good job, decent pay, using my skills, should have been perfect. But every bridge I designed, I saw the ghosts. Saw Tommy welding brackets. Saw Carl calculating loads. Saw Marcus tightening bolts one-handed while blood ran down his arm. Saw all the men whose names I'd forgotten, the replacements who died before I could learn who they were. My supervisor praised my work, said my bridges were over-engineered, built to standards way beyond what was necessary. "You're too cautious, Chen. You can cut corners, save money." I couldn't cut corners. Because I knew what happened when bridges failed. I'd seen it. Seen a temporary bridge collapse under a tank. Seen the crew drown trapped inside. Seen a poorly built span give way, dump a supply truck in a river. Seen men die because someone didn't tighten a bolt properly. So I over-engineered everything, triple-checked every calculation, obsessed over every detail. Better to waste money than to kill someone. My hands still shake when I hear loud noises, still flinch at fireworks, backfires, thunder, still see the flares when I close my eyes, still hear the machine guns, the mortars, the screams. I'm 39 years old, and I've been dead inside since 1945. It's been 14 years since the war ended. 14 years, and I'm still building bridges in my nightmares. I never married. Couldn't. How could I bring someone into this? How could I expose a woman to the man I've become? The one who wakes up screaming, who can't go to 4th of July celebrations, who goes cold and distant when things get too loud or too chaotic. My parents don't understand. They think I should be over it by now. The war's been over for 14 years, Robert. You need to move on. Find a wife, start a family, be normal. Normal? What's normal? I don't remember what normal feels like. Normal ended in 1944 when I started building bridges under fire. I still work for the Highway Department. Still design bridges. I'm good at it, maybe the best they have. Every bridge I design is built to last 100 years, to handle loads far beyond specifications, to survive anything. Because that's what you do when you've seen structures fail, when you've seen what happens when engineering isn't perfect. My co-workers think I'm odd, too quiet, too serious, too meticulous. They invite me to lunch, to drinks after work, to office parties. I decline politely. What would we talk about? Sports? Weather? Their kids' report cards? I can't pretend to care about those things. Can't make small talk when my head is full of explosions and screaming and the smell of burning metal. Can't laugh at jokes when I remember Tommy Kowalski's body scattered across a bridge section, Carl Jensen's legs blown off, Marcus Williams bleeding out one-handed while finishing his work. The VA says I'm fine, physically fine anyway. The wound's all healed. I'm not disabled, not eligible for any special support. Just go back to normal life, they say. You're one of the lucky ones. Lucky? Yeah, I'm so lucky. I see other veterans sometimes. We recognize each other without speaking. There's a look in the eyes, a distance, a darkness that never quite goes away. We nod to each other on the street, two ghosts acknowledging each other's existence. We don't talk about it. What would we say? Sometimes I drive past bridges I designed. Watch the traffic flowing across them. Cars full of families, trucks hauling goods, people going about their lives. They don't know about the calculations that went into those structures. Don't know about the man who designed them, the ghosts that haunt him, the bridges he built under fire that taught him how to build ones that will never fall. They don't need to know. The bridge holds. That's all that matters. I think about the guys who didn't make it home. Tommy, Carl, Marcus, Sergeant O'Brien, all the others whose names I've forgotten or never learned. They'd be in their 30s now, my age. They'd have wives, kids, careers, lives. Instead, they're frozen forever in French and German mud. Young men who died building bridges so the army could advance, so the war could be won, so the world could be saved. And what did we save it for? So I could spend the rest of my life designing bridges I'll never cross, haunted by the ones I built under fire. The war ended in 1945, but for combat engineers, it never really ends. We just traded one kind of bridge building for another. Instead of Bailey bridges under artillery fire, we build highway bridges under the weight of memory. Instead of German machine guns, we fight our own mines. The technical skills they taught us, those stayed useful. Load calculations, stress analysis, proper anchoring, material selection. I use those every day. But the other skills, the ones you learn in combat, those don't transfer to civilian life. How to work while shells fall. How to keep building while friends die. How to bury your fear and grief and horror so deep you can't find them anymore. How to become a machine that just does the job no matter what. Those skills just make you broken. Make you into someone who can't connect, can't feel, can't be normal. Someone who's more comfortable with blueprints and calculations than with people. Someone who builds perfect bridges because he's seen what happens when they fail. Who over-engineers everything because he knows the cost of failure is measured in lives. I'm Robert Chen. I'm a civil engineer. I design bridges for the California highway system. I'm respected in my field, considered an expert. My bridges will outlast me by decades. But I'm also still that combat engineer in France, in Germany, building Bailey bridges under fire, still watching Tommy disappear in an explosion, still hearing Carl scream, still holding Marcus's hand while he bled. You don't leave war behind, you just learn to carry it. Every bridge I design carries the weight of the ones I built in combat. Every calculation includes the memory of the men who died. Every structure I create is a monument to the ones who didn't make it home. They taught us how to build bridges in engineering school, taught us the technical skills, the mathematics, the physics, but combat taught us the real lesson. Bridges are built with blood, with sacrifice, with the lives of men who deserved better than to die in a river in France or Germany, building a structure so tanks could cross. I survived the war. I came home. I have a job, a life, a future. But part of me is still there, in the darkness on the Moselle, under the flares, in the machine gun fire. Still building, still working, still watching friends die while I tighten bolts and try not to think about what it all means. That's what combat engineering does to you. It doesn't kill you clean. It just hollows you out and sends you home. And you spend the rest of your life building bridges you'll never cross, trying to get back to a place that doesn't exist anymore. We built bridges so the army could advance, so the war could be won, so we could come home. But we never really came home. We're still there, in the rivers and the darkness, building under fire, dying a little bit with every bolt we tighten. And the bridges hold. That's something, at least. The bridges always hold.